dear brothers and sisters, welcome to this program of Raja Yoga or the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. Patanjali was a great yoga master, an incarnation of Ishvara himself, as often said. And about 3000 years back, he was able to compose these sutras, and they are very well known as Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. And this is also known as the path of Raja Yoga, as given and named by Swami Vivekananda. The whole goal is to gain mastery over the mind. So yoga is one of the 6 systems of Indian philosophy. All of you are aware of the Shat Darshanas, of the 6 systems of philosophy: Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Yoga, Puramimamsa, Uttarmimamsa. And Nyaya, Vaisheshika essentially developed the logical framework to investigate the reality. Just like in modern science, you have got the dimension of logic, hypothesis, formulation of a design, double-blind studies and whatnot, and you conduct the experiment and take the result, and you have multi-centric trial and repeated that again and again, and you come up with the inference. So this is the methodology evolved in the West in our modern science. A similar thing was evolved in our ancient times in the field of Nyaya, Vaisheshika and other systems. They used powerful logic to decipher and to see that the hypothesis gets proven. And these 6 systems essentially used this logic and developed the tenets that are needed to bring about the reality in their own way. And we are going to concentrate in this on Yoga Shastras, that is Sutras of Patanjali on yoga. While somewhere else we have dealt with Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Puramimamsa and Uttarmimamsa. So in this Yoga Shastras, the Sutra, what does that mean? Sutra is a thread. Essentially it means maximum knowledge condensed in minimum words. In the modern times we call it as a formula. Now for example, F equals ma. This brings about the whole essence of Newton's laws of motion, the second one. Similarly, E equals mc square. That gives you the whole essence of whole of quantum mechanics. How matter can be converted to energy, energy can be converted back to matter, can be put. So, sutras are like formulae, and that gives maximum knowledge in minimum words. In the definition, we can say that they represent concise, unambiguous, meaningful, properly applicable, devoid of sthoba or kinds of fillers in Vedic chanting that normally used, irrefutable. Those are the dimensions of a sutra. So they are very, very precise, accurate and irrefutable dimensions that come up. So that is the meaning of the sutra. Then we have the yoga. What is the meaning of yoga? The word yoga comes from the root yuj. Yujyate anena iti yogaha. Yoga is to join. What is it that we are going to join? We are going to join our small individual personality with that all-pervasive total personality of the whole system, the reality. Therefore, the term yoga is derived from the root yuj. And this is dimension of yujyate anena is union. And yoga samadhi is another word that is used. Yoga is to gain mastery over the mind to get to the level of samadhi. Samyaka diyate the samadhi. That is said. Having talked about yoga and sutras, Patanjali starts off with the first sutra, that is that Atha Yoga Anushasanam. Now I am going to present the Yoga Shastra, the science of yoga, he says. Starting with that, now he defines what yoga is in his own terminology. Yogaha Chitta Vritti Nirodha. As most of you have heard, this is the popular definition. What does that mean? Chitta Vritti. We have got the modifications of the mind which are there. And modifications of the mind has to be brought under control. And I would call it as to gain mastery over the mind is yoga. In a sense, you should be able to completely stop all the thoughts and remain calm, quiet, silent, peaceful. One side. Another side, if you want, you should be able to sharpen the mind. Brilliant mind, dynamic mind, faster mind, quicker mind, this type of thing. Both these things are included in what I call as the Nirodha, is the mastery. So, Nirodha is the mastery, I would call, rather than just cessation of the thoughts. Cessation of thoughts, stoppage of thoughts is one aspect, very necessary, but it has both the dimensions. So in fact, if you look at any thought, the thought comes and the thought goes. Entire life is a cycle of birth and death. We all take birth, we grow, we become young and we become adults, and we grow in our age, become old age, and one day we die. And according to Yoga Shastra, what happens is that when I die, then I will come back again to the next life. There is an interim period before I come back to the next life. And therefore there is a continuity of the cycle of birth and death. Whatever I do in this life, whatever karmas I develop, whatever the memory stores that I accumulate during this, will all be contained and come back to me next time. And this is the one that can explain prodigies. There are music prodigies. Even when they are only 1 year, 2 years old, they sing like masters of music. How is that possible? It's all their previous life experience stored in the memory which has come to this dimension. They are called as samskaras. That is the karma avasheshas. So, every vritti, every thought that we do, generates a samskara, a deep impression inside. And that is the one that is carried on. That continuously goes on accumulation, and some of the samskaras are changed, some of the samskaras are rebuilt, some of the samskaras are hidden. So all these things form the base on which we take the cycle of birth and death, just like the thoughts come and go, come and go. Sankhya philosophy, in a sense, is the basis of yoga. The sufferings of human beings arise from the ignorance, according to Sankhya. Ajnana, avidya are the terms that are used. The essence of the human being is Purusha, pure consciousness. And that is total knowledge, infinite knowledge, pure knowledge, and there is no ignorance there. But as the Purusha and the Prakriti come together, due to ignorance, the human beings which identifies and starts getting smaller and smaller, petty and petty and strict. So it's here the mind gets clogged up and enters into avidya, that is wrong knowledge. So it's the wrong knowledge that's the base of all our sessions. When you look at yoga now, it has got number one, chitta or the mind. Then you have the second, the vritti or the modifications. And the third is the nirodha. or the cessation or control of the thoughts. So, one side when you look at Hatha Yoga, which emphasizes essentially on the physical aspects, how to use the physical body to go to greater heights, to evoke the Kundalini and to reach the highest heights. And whereas in Patanjali Yoga Sutras, it is the Ashtanga Yoga of Patanjali, which essentially emphasizes to gain mastery over the mind. We may use the body, we may use the senses, we may use the breathing, we may use even behavioral transformation, but the goal is here, the mind. So, in a sense, both Hatha Yoga and the Patanjali Yoga have the same goal. That is gaining mastery over the mind and reach the ultimate. Therefore, there is a commonality, there is a distinction between the two systems, Hatha and the Patanjali Yoga. Normally, we have Chitta as used in a very comprehensive way by Patanjali. So it consists of the Mana, Buddhi, Chitta, Ahankara. All the four dimensions have been brought forth there. Mana is the synthesizing faculty. It goes on gathering thoughts from everywhere and then use that dimension. Then the Buddhi analyzes that and tells what are needed, what are not needed. What are not needed is thrown away. What are needed will be stored in the memory. That is the memory or the smriti or the chitta often called. Then at the base of all these things we have the ahankara, I thought. I am thinking, I am eating, I am talking, I am walking, I am urinating, I am excreting. I thought. That I thought is the ego and the ahankara in the technical terms. Therefore there are four dimensions of chitta: mana, buddhi, chitta, ahankara. Mana, buddhi, smriti, ahankara. These are the dimensions. So the aim is to cleanse entire chitta, cleanse the mind, emotions, intellect, everything has to be cleansed. And when you cleanse, then you reach the highest. That goal of yoga is called Kaivalya. So, that state, we have complete freedom. Freedom from all tensions, stresses, misery, sufferings of life, whatsoever. Even we overcome the bondage of birth and death. When we have the total purity at the highest level, then it becomes Kaivalya. So, the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita talk about the mind as Antakarana. And this Antakarana, which consists of all this Mana, Buddhi, Chitta, Ahankara, is a storehouse of all our samskaras. One side. Then we have the decision-making faculty and Ahankara, the ego, and the means for synthesizing faculty. All these are included in the Chitta dimension. Whereas Sankhya essentially emphasizes on the Buddhi, Ahankara and the Manas. So a slight difference between the two. That's the dimension that we see. So then, Patanjali talks about the Chitta Bhumis. This depends on the dominations of the three gunas: Tamas, Rajas and Sattva. The entire mind, Chitta, is made out of the three dimensions, that is Tamas, Rajas and the Sattva. Tamas is the grossest, Rajas is the middle and Sattva is the best dimension. So each one of them have got the 5 states of the Chitta. They are called the Chitta Bhumis. So the first one is called Chitta Vikshipta. Chitta Kshipta, that is the disturbed state of Chitta. Then we have the Mudha. Mudha is the dull state. You are lazy, drowsy, you don't want to do anything. Then the third is the Vikshipta. Vikshipta is the distracted state. So in which the mind gets distracted. It's called the Chanchala mind often. Then we have the Ekagra. That is the mind in full full logical framework. Every thought is linked with each other, and you have the power of concentrate. That is the ekagra. And this leads to focusing of the dharana, one pointedness. Then we have the nirodha sthiti, in which you have the mastery. That you go back to the source of the thoughts, stay there, or you enter into thought and see that it grows. So these are the dimensions that have been talked about as the 5 states of the chitta, or called the chitta bhumis. Chitta kshipa, kshipta, mudha, vikshipta, ekagra and nirodha. The first 3 levels of chitta are not considered in the category of yoga, but ekagra and nirodha come more into prominence in yoga. So these are the chitta bhumis that we have talked about, the 5 layers in a sense you can say, and that forms the dimension. So what is that state of mudha? It is a state of infatuation. The infatuated mind, being overpowered by tamas, succumbs to commit unrighteous acts influenced by violent emotions. So in this state, the mind is in a gross form, and even to do a small work, it spends tremendous amount of energy, and invariably there is a lot of confusion, and the person who is featured by this, he doesn't want to work, he is lazy, lethargic, drowsiness, sleepiness, and somebody should be goading, somebody should be pushing, somebody should be supervising to see that he does the action. Often he does the wrong acts, unrighteous acts, violent emotions. This is the grossest, called the mudha, or the infatuated. While kshipta, or the distracted. The distracted mind, being overpowered by rajas, is extremely unsteady, unable to concentrate or decide, and is the source of all pleasure and pain. So the difference between tamas and rajas, between the mudha and the kshipta, is in this, that the mind has become active here. There is no laziness, drowsiness, sleepiness, but it is active. But the activity is featured as a chanchalata, as a haphazardness, random mind, haphazard mind, and that is the kshipta, the distracted mind. Then we go to the next, or the vikshipta, where occasionally they become steady. Sometimes it is steady, sometimes it is distracted. Mostly unsteady for most part. And now this is influenced by sattva. As the sattva grows more and more, we are able to withdraw from the painful objects and become fixed on pleasurable objects. And as a result, the mind becomes a little more steady as we grow higher in the stage of vikshipta. Then you get the capacity to concentrate and to focus the mind. So in the chanchalata, there are multiple thoughts and they are unconnected. Whereas in ekagrata, there are multiple thoughts to begin with and all thoughts are linked with one another. Just like the flowers are just scattered and you make a nice garland out of it. This is something like that. So concentration, ekagrata, often we all know is most useful. To be successful in any activity, you must have that wonderful concentration power more and more. From there, when the sattva increases further, you know how to fix the mind at a single thought. From multiple thoughts, you come to the single thought. And single thought is essentially often called as dharana, which we are going to see later. So in this, there is going to be an inner control, inner introversion, and you are able to fix the mind over the dimension. Then comes the last phase, the niruddha, or the restrained. This restrained mind is also influenced by the pure sattva. It arrests all the mental functions. There is a complete cessation or suspension of the mental modes and the subconscious dispositions. So these are called the states of Niruddha dimension. So now these are the Chitta Bhumis, and then we have Chitta Vrittis. That is 5 varieties of Chitta. Pramana, Viparya, Vikalpa, Nidra, Smrutayaha, Vrittayaha, Panchatayaha, Klishta, Aklishtaha. These are the sutras of Patanjali, which tells us that we have 5 varieties of the thoughts, and each one of them can be klishta. It can be very painful, which can cause a lot of agony, pain, tension, stresses and others. Or they can be neutral. These are the 3. Each of these 5 varieties can be having klishta or aklishta component. Okay, what are these 5 varieties? One is the pramana, the right knowledge. So you perceive with your eyes and you say everything fine. Correct knowledge. Those grasped through the senses. Pratyaksha, it's called. Then you see smoke on the mountain, then you infer there should be fire. Parvato Vanniman Dhumat, it's said. That's the inferential knowledge. Even inferential knowledge can be the right knowledge. Therefore, the Pratyaksha, Anumana. And the third is the documental evidence, Agama. All our Shastras give us the right knowledge. Just like in modern science, we have the textbooks. The textbooks are the documentation of the right knowledge. These textbooks are formed by lot of research and understanding and repeated experimentation and repeated understanding by various experts in the field, and they have brought this textbook. They go on editing to newer and newer textbooks. In the same way, our Shastras, our Agama, that is the basic texts of Yoga, Upanishads and others, they are all evolved systematically over hundreds and thousands of years. Therefore, they are also the Pramanas. Therefore, these are the 3 ways by which you get the correct knowledge. Direct perception, inferential knowledge and the textual knowledge. Then the second one is Viparya. Viparya is the wrong knowledge. The wrong knowledge. You have got a jaundice eye, you look at the whole world, it looks yellow. Therefore, if you conclude this whole world has become yellow, wrong knowledge. Similarly, in the evening you are just going and there is something like this and you think it's a big snake. But when you put on your torch and see it's only a rope. Sarparajjunyaya. Seeing a snake in a rope. Or seeing a ghost in a post. These are the wrong knowledges that we have. In various ways we have this Viparya, or the wrong knowledge that comes. Most of the people suffering from asthma, they believe that their asthma is due to the pollution outside. In Bangalore we did a lot of work on asthma, and the first lecture that is given by our Dr. Nagaratna gives us the right knowledge to remove the Viparya. What the Viparya they have? She asks, all of you think that pollution is the root cause for your asthma, and Bangalore has become very polluted. A lot of smoke, a lot of parthenium weeds and a lot of dirt and everything has become very polluted. Therefore you are suffering from asthma. Then she asks a question. If it be true that outside pollution is the root cause for asthma, How many people get asthma? It's only 4.5% people in Bangalore city. Why the remaining 95.5% of the people do not get asthma? What does the medical world tell us? The medical world, the science tells us there is an internal defect in every asthmatic. What is that internal defect? It's called non-specific bronchial hyperreactivity. That means oversensitivity of the bronchus. When the pollution becomes too much of smoke comes, then everybody will wheeze. But the people who have asthma, even a very small little pollution, a little smoke, immediately will trigger off the bronchoconstriction and cause the problem. What is the remedy therefore? Not to clean the outside. You clean it for a different purpose, but this will not remedy your problem. What is the remedy? You have to desensitize your oversensitive bronchial reflex. So this is solution. Therefore, Viparya is the wrong knowledge, and this wrong knowledge has to be corrected. From that viewpoint, you must understand. In modern science, it's called as the confounding variables. All the confounding variables should be removed to get the right knowledge. Then we have the third, the Vikalpa. The Vikalpa is a fantasy, just an imagination, a blabbering. You guys go on talking, and there is no subject whatsoever there. And you have so much of distracted things. You jump from one subject to another subject to this thing, and then just go on going round. And your mind is in a state of that random, the Vikalpa phase, in which you are in a phase of fancy and the imaginative things. Everything is done. This is the third state of the mind. So, Pramana, Viparya, Vikalpa. Then the fourth is the Nidra, deep sleep. Sleep without dreams. This is called Nidra. The greatest contribution of Patanjali is to recognize even deep sleep or Nidra as a Chitta Vritti, as a modification of the mind, as a thought pattern, as one variety of the thought. Normally many people think that deep sleep is all thoughts have gone. But Patanjali says, no, thoughts have not gone, they have been frozen into its seed form. They are all in the unconscious form. So when you wake up, all those samskaras or vasanas which are knit to it are going to come back. Take a simple example. Every day in the night when you sleep, you make a decision, tomorrow morning, 4 o'clock I have to get up because I have to catch a flight at 8 o'clock and I have to leave the house by 5 o'clock, and you put an alarm. But before the alarm rings at 4 o'clock, you are already wake up. The inner alarm works. How? The thought that you have put before sleep is working there, is kept there. Therefore, Nidra is not a state in which all thoughts have vanished, all thoughts have been cessed, but it is a state in which the thoughts have been frozen. They have gone into the potential form. Then we have the last, the memory. Smriti. Smriti is the memory. What is memory? Anubhuta Vishaya Asampramoshaha Smritihi. It says. All those things which you have experienced, they have gone as a samskara within you. And then you remember them. You open up that store of information and bring it to our action. This is the memory. So, in the phase of memory also, in the phase of Smriti also, what is happening? The mind is in the frozen form. The mind is in the potential form. Therefore, among the 5 Chitta Vrittis, the first 3 are in the kinetic form, the other 2 are in the potential form. Pramana, Viparya, Vikalpa. They are all in the kinetic form in which you are in the phase of manifestation, in the form of action. Whereas the other 2, Nidra and Smriti, all the subconscious traits, blocks, obsessions, phobias, everything hidden in our subconscious and the unconscious and others, they are all the state of potential form. They have not come into manifestation. They are called as the avyakta. They are called the unmanifest. So the manifested and the unmanifested, the vyakta and the avyakta. And each of these things can be krishta or aklishta, as we have seen. So these are the dimensions of the chitta vrittis that beautifully Patanjali describes, the great contribution of Patanjali. So then when he says yogaha chitta vritti nirodha, when you have to gain mastery over the mind, then all this had to come under control and you get mastery over all this. Mastery over pramana, vipraya, vikalpa. Mastery over nidra and the smriti. Look at that. You must be having complete mastery over your nidra also. And you must have the complete mastery over all your memory stores. What is that mastery? You should be able to have complete purity, purification. There should not be avidya. There should be blockages, obstacles, blocks. Everything should be clean. It should become pure, transparent, like a blur. So that is the implication of the chitta vritti nirodha that Patanjali talks about. Many people do not understand this. They think that when they go into a samadhi, they have reached the highest. Even samadhi is a avyakta form, a purified sleep, and is not the ultimate. So Patanjali is very clear in the advanced process that there are different types of samadhi. It takes you to the higher and higher. The ultimate is kaivalya. In that you have complete purification. So when all these chitta vrittis completely get purified, pramana, viparya, vikalpa, nidra, smriti, everything get purified, then you reach the kaivalya. That's the dimension he talks about. But how to do that? Arjuna asked Krishna, see, the mind is full of chanchalata and it looks impossible to gain control over the mind. But Krishna Bhagavan also says in Bhagavad Gita, yes, what you say is right. Asamshayam mahabaho mano durnigraham talam. Asamshayam mahabaho mano durnigraham chalam. So what you say is right. It looks impossible to control the mind. But if you know the secret, you can do that. Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha gruhyate. Abhyasa and vairagya are the tools to gain mastery over this mind. Same thing Patanjali also puts in his sutra. How to gain chitta vritti nirodha? Abhyasa vairagya abhyam tan nirodha. Abhyasa and vairagya are the two things that he talks about. So, what is that abhyasa? Abhyasa is the practice. You must go on doing the practice again and again, every day in a fixed time. Let us say 7 o'clock or 5 o'clock. You sit there for 15 minutes or half an hour or 1 hour and do the practice again and again. When you go on doing it, the mind develops the habit to remain calm, quiet and silent, which is needed. You get the mastery over the mind. If you don't do the practice, then you will not get the control and the mastery. You must know everything. You may know everything. That silencing of the mind is very good and this and that, everything you know, but you never practice. So what is needed is practice. Often as it is said, an ounce of practice is equal to a tons of theory. So theory is necessary, but practice is more important. Therefore Patanjali emphasizes on the practice, abhyasa. What is the definition of abhyasa? Tatra sthitau yatnaha abhyasaha. It says, to stay put in the same place, same time, every day, go on doing that again. Then it becomes habit, that becomes the abhyasa. Somebody asked the question, okay sir, how long should I do this thing? How long will it take for me to gain mastery over the mind and reach that kaivalya? And as if he is answering that question, says, Sato dirgha kala, nairantarya, satkara sevitaha, dridabhumihi, he says. Don't think it will happen in a day. Don't think that it will happen in a minute. Sato dirgha kala. A long time it takes. So you should go on practicing for months together, years together, and so on. Because you have built up all the samskaras over several lives. It is all there in this dimension. Therefore, you go on doing dirgha kala. And when you do for even months and years together, how many times you do in a week? Once a week? Twice a week? No. Nairantarya. That means you must do every day. If possible, morning once, evening once. And often it's said 3 times you must do in the Sandhya time. Early morning, at the sunrise, and in the Madhyana when there is a change, and in the evening when the sun is getting set, you have to do that 3 times. Often it's said. Gradually you should see that it spreads throughout the day. It should become a practice throughout the day. Then, Satkara Asavito Dridabhumihi. You should do that with commitment, with respect, with love. And you should have the commitment to see that you do this practice regularly. It should not be just done haphazardly. In the sense, okay, I will do for a few days, I will leave that thing. You should develop that dimension of commitment, the respect, the reverence for these practices. Then you start developing the whole dimension. That is one dimension. The second is the theory, that the Vairagya. Dispassion, Vairagya. What is that Vairagya? Vikataha ragaha yasmin sa viragi. Tasya bhavam Vairagyam. It is said. In whom the attractions of the senses towards sense object has reduced. The rush of the senses towards the sense object have reduced. That is the feature of Vigataha Ragaha. Raga is attraction, has reduced. Normally we have all attractions. Our sense pleasures want to rush towards their object. And they want to run and rush and towards it. They want more and more. They want, demanding the senses. So what should happen? You should start reducing. A dispassion should come. So, this is the second dimension. When the mind is haphazard and mind is full of distraction, uncontrolled, this is the nature of the senses. Senses run toward the object. So what is to be done in the practice is to see that you have the theory to understand, yes, I have to calm down the mind, I have to silence the mind, I have to tranquil the mind, I have to allow senses not to get enslaved by the sense objects. You should gain mastery over the senses, and that is how you will be able to do that. The rush of the senses towards the object has to be reduced, and with an understanding. Therefore, these are the 2 wings on which we fly, Abhyasa and Vairagya, practice and the theory. Theory is important, but theory without practice is lame. Similarly, Abhyasa without Vairagya is blind. So in Vairagya there is an understanding. When you do any practice, you must see how the things are changing. When you do an asana, how the mind is becoming calm, how the breath is slowing down, how you have got relaxation. All those things have to be understood, and you must move in that direction. Otherwise you are doing the same practice for years and years, there is no change. So when you understand and do, the effect will be 100 times more. So that is the Vairagya dimension of the Chitta-vritti Nirodha. 2 powerful methods Patanjali gives. And once you start doing that, then you reach your higher and higher states of consciousness. What is the highest state? And that is called the Ishwaratva. That is the state in which you have the God consciousness, you can say. But who is that Ishvara? What is that highest state? So Patanjali defines who is Ishvara. Klesha, Karma, Vipaka, Ashayaihi, Aparamrushtaha, Purusha Visheshaha Ishvaraha, he says. That is a perfect man with no kleshas, with no karma, with no vipaka. is a state of absolute purity with infinite knowledge, infinite power, infinite freedom, infinite bliss. That is the Ishwaratva that he talks about. So we'll see that in the next session.